So hey anime fans. The series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Sonic Hedgehog. So let's start the series. The air in the forest of death didn't simply smell like wet dirt and dying leaves, it tasted like fear and adrenaline. Naruto Uzumaki's breath came in short gasps. His orange jacket became caught on a thorny branch as he pushed forward, with Sasuke and Sakura moving quickly in front of him. The scroll in his bag felt like a hot coal. "We're being watched!" Sasuke growled, and his Sharingan spun. A kunai hit a tree trunk an inch from Naruto's head. "Yeah, no kidding!" Naruto shouted back and pulled himself free. At that point the world sung. There was no sound, but a vibration that started in his bones and buzzed in his teeth. The green light turned into a sickly, pulsing emerald as the forest canopy above twisted. A sphere of unimaginable energy ripped through the fabric of space and time like paper, sending out sharp, rainbow-colored light. It wasn't falling, it was opening up. And it was going straight for them. "Get down!" Sakura yelled. Naruto, on the other hand, couldn't move. A anguish that was worse than any wound shot through his stomach. The 8-trigram seal on his stomach was burning white-hot. Kurama's voice, which was typically a grating growl in the back of his mind, suddenly became loud and scared. "What is this pull? Naruto!" Naruto's last sight was not the weird emerald, but a glimpse from inside himself. The iron bars of the seal's cage glowed with the same strange green light. They broke. Not from Kurama's power, but from the outside in. And then he felt a pulling and tearing, like if his soul was being ripped in two. He didn't hit the ground. There was no ground. There were a lot of screaming colors, the feeling of being stretched and compressed, and Kurama's angry, fading howl reverberating in a place that had nothing to do with ears. Consciousness came back like a sluggish, terrible wave. The fragrance was not the same. Not dirt and rot, but salt, strange flora, and ozone. Naruto grumbled and pushed himself up with shaking arms. His body didn't feel right. Empty. It seemed like someone had taken out his insides and left a chilly, silent echo. He was on a beach with white sand, but the sea was a strange, clear blue. And the sky, his blue eyes got bigger. Pieces of land with old stone ruins and lots of plants hung in the air in a way that seemed impossible. Waterfalls fell from their edges into the hazy abyss below, where they turned into rainbows. "What, where?" His voice was rough. He tried to gather chakra, which is an easy way to relax. A feeble, pale flame sputtered in his core. The huge, hot reservoir he was used to, Kurama's chakra, which was always there and grumbling, was gone. There was a scary silence inside of him. He held his stomach. The seal was still there, in a recognizable pattern, but it felt like a scar. A door that is locked to an empty room. "Kurama," he murmured. "Hey." No response. Not even a bad word. The quiet was so loud. Panic, icy and stinging, started to crawl up his throat. He was by himself. He was really alone for the first time since he was born. A loud, deep roar shook the peaceful calm. It wasn't just loud, it was a tsunami of anger and confusion that Naruto could feel in his empty chest. He recognized that roar. He had heard it in his nightmares and when he was at his lowest point of borrowed power. Kurama. But this didn't come from inside. It came from over there. A column of red chakra shot out into the sky from the center of the biggest floating island, miles distant. It was mixed with the weird green energy from the jungle. The heat haze made the air around it bend. What kind of place is this where birds are formed of light, spread out in fear? Naruto got up right away, his ninja reflexes taking over the fear. Kurama was gone. Kurama was free. And he was somewhere else. The tie was broken, but a deeper, older pull stayed. A part of him was over there, angry. "I have to get to him," Naruto said quietly, making fists. But how? The geography was too hard. He didn't see any bridges or paths that connected. He was stuck on a small, floating atoll. A blue streak that moved faster than any shinobi shot across the sky between the islands, as if to answer his anguish. It left behind a faint trail of light and the sound of wind rushing. It went around Kurama's chakra column once, then twice, and then it rocketed away, going down. Someone else was here. Kurama did not wake up to darkness, and the bars of a cage that he knew and dreaded. It was to feeling. The hard feel of crushed stone under his feet. The weight of 9 huge tails was behind him. The wind blowing across his thick, red hair. The stench of his own chakra burning the air was awful. He opened his eyes, which were big and red, and saw a world of green, blue, and stone. He was on a huge stone altar with strange, swirling patterns engraved into it that were glowing beneath him and making him feel worried. He stood up, a mountain of living hate and strength. He stretched, his muscles twisting and stretching as he tested this new, deep reality. He was out. He was free. A flood of memories came back to him: the Sage of Six Paths, the interminable conflicts, the ceiling into Mito, then Kushina, and eventually the boy. The box. Naruto Uzumaki. Where are you, brat? His voice was like a physical force that flattened trees and sent shockwaves across the floating islands. He groped inside himself for the boy's consciousness, which was always there, annoying, and full of stupid hope that seeped into his cage. There was nothing. The only thing he could see was the huge, quiet world of his own head. The link was broken. The seal was broken. But he wasn't dead. He was here. And Naruto was somewhere else. The perplexity turned into anger. This was a trick. A new kind of prison. He threw his head back and yelled again, sending out a wave of pure, evil chakra. The altar's old stones broke. The island itself shook. He could feel its structure breaking down, its connection to whatever force held it up, as his energy flowed through it. Fine. Let it all go up in flames. A flash of movement, a dot of blue against his red aura. Quick. Rude and speedy. It stopped on a nearby floating pillar and took shape. Little. Blue. A porcupine? Are you wearing red shoes? Whoa! What a bandnik that got a big upgrade, the creature said, with his hands on his hips and a smug smile on his face. Okay, large, red, and nasty. You're ruining Knuckles' backyard. It's time to relax. Kurama's upper lip pulled back, showing fangs that were longer than the hedgehog was tall. A rat has the guts to talk to me? I am the Nine Tails. A beast with a tail. I shall turn this whole universe to ash. Tailed beast, huh? Sonic the Hedgehog cracked his knuckles and looked at the huge fox with his piercing emerald eyes. He had fought gods and machines that were as big as buildings, but this thing, it felt different. It felt like it was alive and in a lot of agony. Well, I'm Sonic the Hedgehog. And I'm going to be a big pain in the butt. Sonic disappeared in a flash of speed, leaving behind a blue blur. He climbed up the pillar, sprinted along a piece of falling rubble, and then jumped at Kurama's head with a spin dash that was targeted like a cannonball. Kurama didn't even flinch. A single tail, as thick as an old tree, lashed forward with a casual yet deadly ferocity. Sonic's eyes got big. The speed was out of this world. He turned in the air, but the end of his tail hit him. It wasn't a solid hit, but the raw strength behind it felt like getting hit by a freight train. He was sent flying backwards, crashing through 3 stone arches before coming to a rest on a lower terrace, short of breath. Got to go fast. Yeah, not fast enough that time, he said as he pushed himself up. This wasn't a machine. You couldn't just keep hitting it till it shattered. This creature was a natural force. Kurama directed his anger above. The tailed beast bomb was a spinning ball of black and crimson chakra that formed between his teeth. It grew, shrank, and pulled in light and sound. He would get rid of this bothersome gnat, and this dumb rock that floats. Hey! Hey, fuzzball! A different voice. Grounded. Man Knuckles the Echidna, who protected the Master Emerald and Angel Island, stood on the main altar with his fists shining with a soft pink light. You're messing with the chaos energy field. You're making the island slide down. Kurama's head turned. There is another bug. He let go of the bomb, not at Sonic, but at the core of the altar, where the Master Emerald sat on its pedestal. This was where the new voice came from. No! Knuckles yelled and jumped in front of him. For a short second, the explosion was quiet, and then the sound and light filled everything. A dome of destruction grew, turning stone into vapor and turning the old landscape into dust. Naruto saw the brightness and felt the tremor far away on the island chain. A chilly fear settled in his empty stomach. He's attacking. I have to get there. He tried to sprint along the beach, looking for a route up, a vine, or anything else. He couldn't walk on trees since his chakra was weak. He was stuck. The anger boiled over. I'm no good. Without him, I'm just a failure again. Hey! Are you all right down there? Naruto looked up. There was something above him that looked like a fox. But it had 2 tails, it was bright yellow, and it was flying with 2 tails that spun like a helicopter? It wore a tool belt and goggles on its head. You don't live here, do you? Tails inquired, landing softly. People nickname me Tails, but my real name is Miles Prower. Sonic claimed he noticed a new person over here. Explosion, was it your pet? He's not my pet. Naruto snapped, his wrath taking over his dread. He's a part of me. And he's afraid and mad. Before he destroys everything, I have to get to him. He said, but then he stopped, thinking of his own town and how scared people were when they saw the 9 tails. Before someone gets hurt trying to stop him. Tails could see the real pain in the boy's blue eyes. He wasn't a bad person. He was a kid who was terrified for his friend, even if that friend was a monster that destroyed cities. Okay, Tails answered in a softer voice. Get on. The tornado, my plane, is close by. We'll be able to see better. Naruto did his best to explain while they were flying in the biplane. A different world. Shinobi. Beasts with tails. Seals. The odd emerald that made them fight. Tails listened, his mind whirling. A chaos emerald that can change dimensions? A living thing made of pure energy? It was more than what Eggman usually did. From above, it was evident how bad the damage was. There was a huge hole where the main altar used to be, and it was smoking. Kurama stood in the middle, apparently unscathed, fighting a fast-moving blue streak and a strong echidna who was using his fists to block chakra blasts. But the island was leaning. Pieces of land were breaking off and falling into the water below. Just being here is making the island's energy weaker. Tails yelled above the wind. We have to keep him in check. I need to talk to him, Naruto insisted. Talk to that? It's a little busy attempting to level a whole continent. Naruto, on the other hand, couldn't take his eyes off the angry fox. He didn't simply see the power, he also observed the body language. Kurama's head turned as he looked for threats and anything else. For him, the anger was a cover for the same empty, scary loneliness that Naruto was feeling. Naruto murmured, "He's alone, Tails," in a voice that was practically a whisper. For the first time in 1,000 years, he's completely by himself. And he doesn't know what to do with it. A new gleam caught the sun as the tornado spun around. A fleet of sleek, red and gray planes appeared on a satellite island below. There was no mistaking the shape on their sides, an egg-shaped outline with a mustache. Eggman! Ugh! Tails said. A loud, smug voice came from the lead ship. What an interesting specimen! What a powerful, messy force! Look, my bots, a real source of life energy. Much stronger than any Chaos Emerald. Start the capturing process. The power of that fox will be the foundation of my new Eggman Empire. Thick, crackling tractor beams shot down from the ships, aiming at the tired but still fighting Kurama. They hit his chakra cloak, which made a sizzling sound. Kurama screamed in anger again and hit the beams. Naruto's heart raced against his ribs. No! They can't! He is not a battery! He gazed down at the fight below, where Sonic and Knuckles were avoiding, Eggman was moving in, and Kurama was lashing out in pain he didn't understand. Then he looked at his own weak, shaking hands. In the quiet of his own spirit, a belief grew stronger, as cold and piercing as a kunai. It was a sense that had been there longer than his friendship with Kurama. The boy who fought for recognition, for a companion, and for a place to belong felt this way. He looked at Tails, his eyes no longer wide with fright, but focused like a shinobi from the hidden leaf. Get me down there, Naruto Uzumaki murmured in a calm, low voice. In the middle of it. Now. The adventure had begun, and the twofold fight to save a beast and a bond was underway. The end of Chapter 1. This first chapter sets up the separation and the dimensional occurrence. The stakes right now are high, the island is sinking, and Kurama is going crazy. The emotional center, the loneliness of Naruto and Kurama. Introduction of important Sonic characters. The main bad guy, Eggman, shows up. Naruto's choice to act even though he was weak set up his character development. In each new chapter, the point of view would switch between Naruto, Kurama, and the Sonic cast. Their stories would come together as they fight Eggman's forces, try to figure out how chaos energy affects chakra, and race against time to get back together before their separate lives cause problems for themselves and the world they are stuck in. The tone would blend fast-paced action with profound character moments, looking at what Naruto and Kurama are like when they aren't together. Would you finish Chapter 1? Sure. As promised, here is the finished first chapter, which has the right length and style. The Howl in the Sky, Chapter 1. Word count, about 3,180. The forest of death didn't simply smell like wet dirt and dead leaves, it tasted like fear and adrenaline. Naruto Uzumaki's breath came in short gasps. His orange jacket became caught on a thorny branch as he pushed forward, with Sasuke and Sakura moving quickly in front of him. The scroll in his bag felt like a hot coal. We're being followed! Sasuke growled as his Sharingan, which had just woken up, spun around and caught the tiniest movement of leaves 50 yards behind them. A kunai hit a tree trunk an inch from Naruto's head. Yeah, no kidding! Naruto shouted back and ripped the fabric to get free. The other team was getting braver. They had been stressed out for hours, and the tension was like a wire drawn tight. Then the world sang. There was no sound, only a sensation that started in his bones and buzzed in his teeth. The forest canopy above twisted, and the dappled green light turned into a sickly, pulsing emerald. A sphere of unimaginable energy, the size of a house in shining jagged, rainbow-colored light, ripped through the fabric of space and time like paper. It wasn't falling, it was opening up. In hushed, shimmering waves, reality itself seemed to slip away. And it was going straight for them. "Get down!" Sakura yelled, her voice high with fear that went beyond shinobi ambushes. Naruto, on the other hand, couldn't move. A pain that was worse than any wound shot through his gut. The 8 trigram seal on his tummy burned his skin like fire. Kurama's voice, which was typically a low, irritating sound in the back of his head, turned into a loud, confusing scream that made him feel like he was going to die. "What is this pull? It hurts. Naruto." Naruto's last sight was not the weird emerald, but a vision from inside. The seal's cage, the iron bars he had seen in his mind's eye, were blazing with the same strange green light. They didn't bend, they broke. Not from Kurama's huge power, but from the outside in, like glass hitting a sound wave. And then he felt a pulling and tearing, as if his soul were being split in two and a key part of him was being pulled away into a howling nothingness. He didn't fall to the ground. There was no ground. There were a lot of screaming colors, lime green, red, cobalt, and it felt like I was being stretched out into infinity and squished into a single point at the same time. Kurama's angry, fading scream resonated in a place that had nothing to do with hearing. It was a sound that was felt only in the heart. Then nothing happened. Consciousness came back like a sluggish, terrible wave. The scent was odd. Instead of rot and muck and iron, there were salt, sweet, and exotic flowers, as well as ozone, like after a lightning strike. Naruto grumbled and pushed himself up on arms that were shaking. His body didn't feel right. Empty. It felt like someone had scooped out his insides and left a chilly, empty space. His arms and legs felt heavy, and it wasn't just because he was tired. He was on a beach with sand that seemed too white to be real, but the sea was a peculiar, crystalline blue that was so transparent he could see unusual, colorful fish swimming around coral pillars far below. And the sky, his blue eyes got bigger and bigger, covered in sand and salt. Pieces of land, covered in crumbling old stone ruins and bright, lush plants, hung in the air like they were floating. They were connected by thin, wispy waterfalls that fell from their edges into the foggy void below, and then turned into shimmering rainbows. "What? Where the hell?" His voice was a scratchy rasp that sounded strange to him. He tried to gather chakra, which is a simple way to soothe his anxiety and experience the warmth he was used to. A feeble, pale blue flicker flared in his center like a match that was going out. The huge, hot reservoir he was used to, the steady, grumbling presence of Kurama's chakra, was gone. A scary quiet rang out inside of him. He held his tummy and dug his fingers into the fabric of his jumpsuit. The seal was still there, and it felt like a familiar pattern under his fingertips. A locked door leads to a big, empty room. "Kurama," he mumbled the word, but the sound of calm waves and strange bird cries far away drowned it out. No response. Not even a snort of scorn or a snarled insult. His own thoughts were so quiet that they were deafening, like a blank he had never known. Panic, icy and stinging, started to crawl up his throat. He was by himself. He was truly, completely alone for the first time since the day he was born. The thought was more paralyzing than any ninja enemy. A noise broke the calm, and it made his blood run cold. It was a loud, deep boom that shook the ground and shook his feet. It wasn't just loud, it was a wave of anger, uncertainty, and a deep, painful loneliness that echoed in Naruto's empty chest. He recognized that roar. He had heard it in his nightmares, in the sounds of the hamlet being destroyed, and in his darkest moments of stolen power. Kurama. But this didn't come from inside. It came from over there. A geyser of pure malice sprang up into the sky from the core of the largest floating island, miles distant. It was a column of red chakra that was angry. It had flashes of that same weird green energy from the trees. The heat haze made the air around it bend, and the floating debris around shook and broke. Birds, strange birds made of light and feathers that looked like crystal, flew away in a scared, quiet flock. Naruto got up right away. His ninja instincts, which he had acquired by being hunted and fighting back for most of his life, took over the profound fear. Kurama was gone. Kurama was free in body. And he was somewhere else. The tie was broken, but a deeper, older pull lingered, like a ghost limb screaming in pain. A part of him was over there, angry at this strange new reality. Naruto said, "I have to get to him." And his voice got a little stronger. He made fists, and his claws dug into his palms. But how? The geography was a crazy person's dream. He didn't see any bridges, vines that connected, or paths. He was stuck on a little, floating atoll, like a prisoner in a lovely, impossible cage. A blue streak that moved faster than any shinobi he'd ever seen, faster than the fourth Hokage's stories, zipped across the sky between the islands, as if in response to his sorrow. It left a thin trail of light and the sound of rushing wind, of which that came to him a second later. It went around Kurama's chakra column once, then twice. It was like a daring, unbelievably quick insect buzzing a forest fire. Then it rocketed away, going down toward the bigger landmass. There was someone else here. And they were going to Kurama. Kurama's awakening wasn't to the dark and the bars of a cage that he knew and detested. It was a barrage of feelings. The hard, grainy feel of crushed ancient stone under his huge paw pads. He could feel the full length of 9 huge tails behind him, each one a limb that weighed a lot. The genuine, humid wind that blew through his thick, red fur, not the stale, mental air that came from a sewer prison. The caustic smell of ozone and blood from his own chakra searing the air around him. He opened his eyes, which were huge, vertical red slits, and instead of the damp ceiling of a mindscape, he saw a huge, wide sky of inconceivable blue with floating lands. He was atop a huge stone altar with strange, swirling patterns etched into it. The patterns were glowing a strained violet color underneath him, which was making him feel stressed out by the sheer, oozing pressure of his existence. He stood up, and a mountain of live hate and power grew. He stretched, his muscles like the trunks of ancient trees coiling and flexing as he tried out this new, deep, scary reality. The chains were no longer there. The seal was no longer there. The boy's annoying, chattering presence was gone. He was gone. He was free. A flood of memories came to him without warning, the sage of 6 paths' wise, tired eyes, the unending, terrible fights with his siblings, the icy darkness of the first ceiling into Mido, Kushina's ferocious, mournful grin, and then, the boy. The box. The dumb, loud, and belligerent blonde who wanted to be Hokage. Naruto Uzumaki. "Where are you, brat?" His voice, like a physical force, flattened a strip of bright jungle and sent shockwaves through the floating archipelago, knocking little rocks loose that fell into the void. He delved inside himself to find the boy's mind, which was always there, annoying him with its naive hope that had somehow brought light into his dark cage during the past few years. There was nothing. Only the huge, quiet, and unexpectedly lonely landscape of his own mind. There was no more connection. Not quiet. Cut off. Was the seal broken? He was not dead, though. He was present, in body, mind, and spirit. And Naruto was somewhere else. The perplexity turned into a hotter, more familiar wrath. This was a scam. A new, more advanced type of jail. A world that is like a golden prison. He would show them. He would show everyone. He threw his head back and opened his mouth to the heavens, then screamed again, sending out a visible wave of pure, evil chakra. The altar's old stones creaked and cracked along their seams. The island itself shook. He could tell that its structure was weak and that the mystical force that kept it up was getting weaker and cracking beneath the furious energy of his body. Okay. Let it all go up in flames. Let it all go. A flash of movement, a dot of bright blue against the red glow of his own aura. Quick. Insolently, absurdly quickly. It stopped on a nearby floating rock pillar and took shape. Little. Two-legged. Blue. A hedgehog? Only wearing red shoes and white gloves. For a moment, the ridiculousness of it all calmed his anger. Whoa! What a bad nick with a big attitude problem! The creature yelled, hands on his hips and a smug, fearless grin on his face. His emerald eyes were piercing and calculating. Okay, large, red, and nasty. You're ruining Knuckles' backyard. It's time to relax. Kurama's upper lip pulled back to show fangs that were longer than the hedgehog was tall and dripped with thick, hot saliva. How dare a rodent talk to me? I'm the 9 tails. The best of the tailed creatures. I shall turn this whole universe into ash and cinder. His voice sounded like continents crashing against each other. Beast with a tail, huh? Sonic the Hedgehog cracked his knuckles and was ready to jump. He had fought gods and robots that were as big as buildings, but this monster felt different. There were no wires or metal. It was skin, fur, and something other, something basic and raw. And under the anger, Sonic, who knew more about speed and freedom than anybody else, felt a deep, confused anguish. Well, I'm Sonic the Hedgehog. The fastest thing on Earth. And I'm about to be a huge pain in your butt. Sonic disappeared in a flash of speed that would have made a Jonin blink. He became a blue blur that twisted the air. He ran straight up the side of the pillar, jumped off a piece of rubble that was falling, and turned into a living buzzsaw, spinning like a cobalt cannonball right at Kurama's nose. Kurama didn't even bother to move his main body. One tail, as thick as an old redwood tree and moving at a speed that made it look like it was cracking a whip, lashed out from his side. It wasn't a targeted hit, it was a casual, dismissive swat. Just before the crash, Sonic's eyes got big. The speed and strength were unbelievable. He turned in midair, and his amazing reflexes kept him from being hit directly, but the tip of the huge tail, which was surrounded by red energy, smacked his side. The collision wasn't substantial, but the raw, concussive energy behind it seemed like being hit by a freight train that had lost control. The breath was blown out of his lungs. He was launched flying back like a blue comet, crashing through 3 stone arches in a row with loud crunches before coming to a painful, grinding stop on a lower terrace, where a cloud of dust rose around him. Got to go fast, yeah, he said, coughing and forcing himself up on shaky arms while gritting his teeth against the pain in his rib. Note to self, that time, not fast enough. You couldn't hit this robot hard enough to break its bolts. This thing was like a natural disaster. A force of nature that is extremely, very angry. Kurama, who was now quite angry, turned his anger into something real. Particles of light and dark energy were pulled out of the air in front of his open mouth. They spun, squeezed, and came together to form a spinning ball of black and red chakra, which was called a tailed beast bomb. It got bigger, humming with destructive energy, pulling in sound and light and making the island itself groan in protest. He would get rid of this bothersome gnat and this dumb rock that floats. Hey! Hey, fuzzball! A different voice. Grounded. Guttural. Full of its own type of strength. Knuckles the Echidna, who protected the Master Emerald and all of Angel Island, stood on the main altar next to the burning crater. His fists were clenched and shining with a faint, stubborn pink energy. You're messing up the chaos energy field. You're making the whole island tumble down. Stop it right now. Kurama's big head turned, and his eyes narrowed at the new bug, which was a little bigger than the others and stood so close to the Master Emerald, the biggest source of the weird green energy he had felt. Another thing to think about. He let go of the bomb not at the darting blue blur, but at the source of the new voice. It hit the core of the altar, right at the big, shining green diamond and the echidna that was stupid enough to guard it. No! The Master Emerald! Knuckles yelled, not because he was scared for himself, but because he was scared for his sacred mission. He didn't dive for cover. He jumped into the impending ball of destruction, his hands crossed in front of him as a last line of defense. For one horrible, pregnant second, the explosion was silent. It was a sphere of pure black and red that devoured the light. Then it burst outwards. The central altar was surrounded by sound, light, and pure force. A sphere of destruction grew, turning stone to vapor, smashing sculptures that were thousands of years old, and throwing Knuckles' body away like a ragdoll. Naruto saw the flash, a dazzling red and black flower that took the color from everything around it. He felt the distant tremor all the way through the island chain, a deep warmth that came to him through the air and stone. A frigid fear, colder than the empty space in his stomach, came over him. He's attacking. I need to get there. I need to stop him. He tried to hurry along the shore, but his feet sank into the soft sand. He was looking for a route up, like a vine or a hidden path. It was hard for him to walk on trees, water, or any of the other fundamental skills because his chakra was weak. He was stuck on a tiny piece of land in a sky full of giants. The anger and hopelessness boiled over. He hit the trunk of a palm-like tree with his fist, and the bark hurt his knuckles. I'm no good. Without him, without my chakra. I'm just a failure again. I can't even get to him. Hey! Are you all right down there? The voice was young, kind, and came from above. Naruto snapped his head up and fiercely wiped his eyes. There was a fox hovering approximately 10 feet above him. It had 2 tails, was a bright, cartoonish yellow, and was flying with its 2 tails spinning in a blur like a helicopter rotor. It had a tool belt around its waist, enormous blue eyes, and goggles pushed up on its forehead. Naruto's brain stopped working. A fox with 2 tails that can communicate and fly. This place kept growing stranger. You're not from around here, are you? Miles Tails. Prower asked as he landed softly on the sand and his twin tails slowed to a stop. His look was interested, not angry. My name is Miles Prower, but everyone calls me Tails. Sonic, the blue hedgehog, stated he observed a new person on this atoll. That massive blast back there. Was that your pet? He pointed with his thumb over his shoulder at the cloud that was slowly disappearing. He's not my pet! Naruto snapped, his rage rising to cover up his dread and guilt. He's a part of me. And he's afraid and mad, and he doesn't know where he is. Before he destroys everything, I have to get to him, or before. He stopped, thinking of his own village and how scared and angry people got when the Ninetales was mentioned, and of the A and B with their ceiling tags. Before someone gets hurt trying to stop him. Tails looked closely at the boy. He noticed the ripped, bizarre clothes, the weird headband with a stylized leaf, and the real pain in those big blue eyes. This person wasn't a bad guy. He was a kid, maybe a little older than him, and he was terrified for his friend, even though that friend was a monster that smashed cities. Tails thought he was honest in a way that reminded him of Sonic. Okay, Tails responded, his voice getting softer. He made a choice. Get on. The tornado, my plane, is tied up right on the other side of this rock. We'll be able to see better from the air. Naruto did his best to explain as the sleek, red biplane flew above the strange archipelago. A different world. Shinobi. Towns. Beasts with tails. Seals. The weird emerald in the woods that broke them up. Tails paid close attention, and his 2 tails twitched as he thought about what to do. A chaos emerald that changes dimensions? A living thing made of pure energy that has a body? It was a scientific and magical puzzle that went beyond even Eggman's normal crazy plans. From the sky, the destruction was terrifyingly evident. There was a huge, smoking hole where the main altar used to be. Kurama stood in the middle, looking undamaged, a giant crimson figure against the green. He was now fighting two people, Sonic, who was moving quickly and hitting him and running away, and Knuckles, who had gotten better and was now using glowing, powerful punches to block lesser chakra blasts. But the island itself was leaning and groaning. Pieces of soil and stone were breaking off the bottom and falling into the water below. Just being here is making the island's natural chaos energy field weaker, Tails yelled over the noise of the wind and engine. His energy signature is like a frequency that doesn't match. We need to keep him under control, or everything will fall apart. I need to talk to him, Naruto insisted, leaning out of the cockpit with his hair blowing in the breeze. Talk to that? It's a bit hard to level a whole continent. Tails made a good point. Naruto's sights weren't on the strength that could destroy. They were focused on the beast. He observed how Kurama's big head turned, not merely to follow Sonic's movements, but also to look out over the horizon. He could see the way his shoulders hunched in defense, and the way his tails lashed out not only as weapons but also in anger. Naruto had worn the Wrath mask many times before, to hide the same empty, scary loneliness he was feeling just now. Naruto's voice dropped as he added, "He's alone, Tails." And the weight of comprehension in his voice was beyond his years. For the first time in 1,000 years, he is utterly alone, both physically and mentally. And he has no idea what to do with it. He only knows how to push everything away. As the tornado turned in a broad arc, a new, scary gleam caught the sun from a group of islands further down. As their cloaking systems turned off, a fleet of elegant red and gray planes came into view. They were razor-edged, had illuminating cannons, and had an insignia on their sides that made Tails' blood run cold, an egg-shaped figure with a pointed, stylized mustache. Eggman! Tails moaned and tightened his grip on the controls. A familiar, loud, and smugly triumphant voice came from the lead ship and resonated throughout the sky, dueling with Kurama's roars. What an interesting species! What a powerful, gorgeous, and chaotic force! Look, my devoted badniks, a real, living, breathing source of energy. Much stronger and less stable than any Chaos Emerald. Start the capturing protocol right away. That fox's amazing abilities will form the foundation of my new Eggman Empire, which will never end. Tractor beams, as thick as old trees and full of purple energy, shot down from the ship's innards. They hit Kurama's chakra cloak, and it sizzled and sparked like water on a hot griddle. Kurama shouted in fresh, angry pain and swatted at the beams like they were stinging bugs, which made him forget about Sonic and Knuckles for a moment. Naruto's heart raced against his ribs like a pounding of fear. Not! They can't! He's not a battery! He is not something to utilize! He peered down at the wild scene. Sonic was a whirlwind of movement, Knuckles was holding the line with sheer grit, Eggman's cold, technological power was coming down, and Kurama, a primal force of nature caught in the midst, was lashing out in anguish and confusion he couldn't explain. Then he stared at his own hands. They were feeble, shaking, and empty of the power that had always characterized him, for better or worse. A belief grew stronger in the deep, quiet well of his own soul. It was icy and sharp like a forged kunai, not because of borrowed power, but because it had been tempered by a lifetime of being misjudged, getting back up, and battling for the smallest hint of acknowledgement. The youngster who would be Hokage was determined to never leave a friend behind, even if that buddy was a monster or a portion of his own shattered soul. He looked at Tails, and his eyes were no longer wide with childlike terror. Instead, they were narrowed with the hard-earned grit of a hidden leaf shinobi. The wind ripped at him, but his voice was deep, firm, and full of iron will that couldn't be broken. Naruto Uzumaki said, "Get me down there," looking at the beast that was his other half, which was raging and caught. Right in the middle of it. Get as near to him as you can. Now. The adventure had begun, along with the twofold fight to save a beast, a bond, and a world that was falling apart. The end of Chapter 1. Next. Chapter 2, Sounds in a World Without Life. Word count 3150. Tails pulled the tornado into a near-vertical dive, and the engine screamed in protest. The wind tore at Naruto's face, making tears come out of the corners of his eyes. The battle's kaleidoscope raced up to meet them. Kurama's chakra was a ferocious red, Eggman's tractor beams were a clinical purple, and Sonic and Knuckles' blue and pink streaks were defiant. The noise was like a wall, roars, explosions, the high-pitched screech of machines, and the low, structural groans of the island as it died. "I'll draw fire! You get ready to leap!" Tails shouted, his tiny hands moving quickly over the controls. The biplane turned quickly to avoid two energy bolts coming from Eggman's bots. Naruto's stomach dropped. Jump? Without chakra to soften the blow? This wasn't like jumping from tree to tree in Konoha. This was a suicide. But seeing Kurama, a single, huge tail caught in a crackling beam, the fox yelling as he was dragged a foot over the broken altar, made the horror go away. He hurts. Pain that is real. Not the seal's suffering, but the pain of being wrenched apart. Just get me close! Naruto yelled back. At the last second, Tails pulled up and leveled out just 20 yards above the chaos. They were flying over the tops of the trees on the middle island now, and the heat from the fight was washing over them in waves. Now! Naruto didn't think twice. He jumped over the edge of the cockpit, his body a heavy, unsteady weight. The world turned. He flailed, and the urge to shape chakra to his feet screamed in a void where no chakra answered. He didn't land gracefully on the sloping side of a crumbling stone pillar like a ninja would have. Instead, he hit it with a bone-jarring, graceless smack and fell down its mossy side in a whirlwind of grit and curses, finally coming to a stop in a tangle of ferns. His whole body hurt. He pushed himself up and spat out dirt. He was here. In the middle of everything. The air was so thick with power that it was hard to breathe. He could see the titans through the trees ahead. Sonic was a constant source of diversion. Come on, big guy! Keep your eyes on the prize, he teased, going straight up Kurama's side and dodging a claw the size of a vehicle. He jumped off the fox's shoulder and spin-dashed into the housing of a tractor beam emitter on the nearest egg carrier. The laser flickered and flared and fizzled. Knuckles was a battering ram that hit with full force. You won't get this island, he said. He met a smaller chakra tendril from Kurama with a punch that sent out a shockwave of pink energy that stopped the attack. He was guarding the edges and keeping the smaller, spider-like badniks from swarming the area. Each punch sent metal parts flying. And Kurama. Kurama was a maelstrom of pure, unfiltered wrath. He wasn't fighting smart, he was just hitting everything. A smaller and faster-tailed beast bomb flew toward an egg carrier and burned its hull. A tail hit the ground where Sonic had been just a second ago. His red eyes, pupils narrow with rage, darted around, but they had no plan, only the desperation of an animal that was trapped and scared. Stop this! I will eat you all up! That's the spirit! More energy for the collection. Eggman's voice rang out from the forward ship. 3 more beams shot out, aiming at Kurama's other tails. They made contact, and the fox's howl changed into a choke squeak of pain and shock. The beams weren't simply holding him, they were sucking him in. Flickers of red energy, like bleeding light, moved up the beams toward the ships. Naruto's blood ran cold. They were taking everything he had. In front of him. His own deep pain in his core seemed to throb in sympathy. He broke free from the fronds, even though his muscles screamed at him to stop. He didn't go to Sonic or Knuckles. He went directly into the huge, suffering Ninetales, which was at the center of the tractor beams. Kurama! His voice, even when it was loud, was a whisper lost in the storm. He tried again, putting everything he had into it. Kurama! Look at me! For a split second, one big red eye, full of hate, blinked down. It didn't recognize the little orange-clad person as anything other than another annoying bug and quickly turned its attention back to the more immediate menace of the beams. The firing was a bodily blow. Naruto fell. He was ready for hate and rage aimed at him. Not for nothing. To be out of sight. The void inside grew bigger. A spider badnik ran out from behind a boulder, its one eye burning red and a laser sight painting Naruto's chest. He dove to the side without thinking, just like a shinobi would. The laser burst burned the ground where he had been standing. With his heart racing, he ran behind a fallen monolith. He was in a conflict zone with no weapons and no power. This was crazy. What would Iruka-sensei do? What do you think Kakashi-sensei would do? They'd make a plan and then use it. But they had chakra. He didn't have anything. Except... He looked around the rock. He watched Sonic not just running, but also directing. He would use Kurama's abilities against Eggman to lead a tail swipe into the path of 2 badniks. He noticed Knuckles not only punching, but also protecting a certain part of the altar where the Master Emerald had been, which was now a crater. They were using what they had to safeguard what was important. Naruto's eyes quickly moved to the tractor beam emitters on the ground, which were big, mechanical pods that had been sent down from the spacecraft. They were the ones who made the beams. The ships were too tall. But these were on his level. A strategy sprang together, out of desperation and sheer willpower. He wasn't a strong person. Not at this time. But he was still Uzumaki Naruto, the Konoha Joker who could think 10 steps ahead of everyone else. He waited for the spider badnik to go around the monolith again. He didn't run as it did. He ran at it, and yelled as loudly as he could. The bot shot because it was scared. As Naruto fell into a slide, the laser went over him. He kicked out with both feet at its thin legs. The metal was weak. It was just a light scout. It fell down with a loud shriek of metal. Naruto was on it before it could get back up, picking up a sharp piece of shrapnel from the ground. He wasn't powerful enough to break through its armor, but he could be very accurate. He pushed the metal into the space between the main body and the weapon arm, twisting it with all his strength. There were sparks. The arm got weak. 1 less. 100 more. He picked up the severed laser weapon from the bot. It felt weighty and strange in his hands. It was something. He slipped from one cover to another, a shadow amid the mess. He wasn't as swift as Sonic, or as strong as Knuckles. He didn't give up. He pulled vines tight between boulders to trip badniks. He shot the laser cannon at another ground-based beam emitter from a distance, making it explode in a shower of sparks. One of the beams that was holding Kurama's tail flickered and died. The fox felt the release and pulled the tail free. It then used it to destroy another emitter pod right away. Kurama's eye moved down again. This time, it stayed on the small person who had just broken the machine that was irritating him for a little bit longer. There was no thankfulness, simply a glimmer of evaluation. You! The deep voice murmured, more a vibration in the earth than a remark addressed at Naruto. It was enough. A spark. Naruto looked up, encountering that huge, whirling eye. Yeah! It's me! We gotta get these things off you! But the moment was gone. An egg pawn, a common infantry figure, clanked into view, its arm cannon charging. Naruto raised his scavenged laser gun, but it was out of energy. He was defenseless. A blue blur intersected the pawn. Sonic skidded to a stop in front of Naruto, having reduced the robot to a pile of bolts with a single, passing kick. Hey, new kid! Not bad for a ground pounder, he said, a quick grin on his face. But this is a bit out of your league, don't you think? He's my friend! Naruto yelled, gesturing wildly at Kurama. Sonic followed the signal to the screaming, building-sized fox currently trying to bite an aircraft in half. You have interesting friends. His expression went serious. Look, he's tough, but he's doing exactly what Eggman wants him to do. That anger is just extra power for the batteries. The mothership's main generator is the source that needs to be turned down. Tails is doing a scan. Is there any way you can get him to calm down? The ground shook before Naruto could say anything. Knuckles fell next to them, breathing heavily, with his gloves worn out and smoldering. The chaos energy is getting too unstable. The island's core can't take much more. We need to get rid of the red one right away. We're doing our best, Knux! Sonic shot back. Any good ideas? Knuckles' eyes narrowed as they looked at Naruto. You! The fox responded to you. In a nutshell, you are linked to its chaos. It's not in it, Naruto remarked, his voice full of old indignation. Kurama is his name. And yes, we are. There was a high-pitched whine in the air. The central cannon of the lead egg carrier, which was huge and gleaming with a deadly purple light, was getting ready to fire. It wasn't going for Kurama. It was aimed at the weak, broken basis of the main landmass of the central island. Eggman! What are you doing? Tails' voice came over the tornado's radio, which Sonic wore on his wrist. Eggman's voice was calm and calculated as he said, If the specimen is too volatile to capture while anchored, then we will just cut the anchor. It will be easier to catch him when he falls. He's going to destroy the island! Knuckles screamed in sheer terror. Naruto got it. This wasn't about getting Kurama anymore. It was about minimizing losses and causing the most damage. Eggman would let the island and everyone on it crash to rescue his own ships and maybe pick up a broken fox from the wreckage. Kurama felt the huge amount of energy building up and turned his anger onto the mothership, where he gathered another, bigger-tailed beast bomb. Two ends of the world were going to meet. No, Naruto said in a whisper. He couldn't reach the ship. He couldn't stop Kurama's bomb from going off. He had no power. But he wasn't by himself. He looked at Sonic, who was ready to sprint up the cannon's beam. He saw Knuckles getting ready to try to punch an energy blast that was coming from the sky. They were willing to die for this area, for their home. Naruto knew what he had to do. That was all he could do. He had to get to the one person who could stop both of them. He fled away from Kurama, but not away from the fox's huge, chakra-covered foreleg. He didn't pay attention to the scorching heat, the strong wind from Kurama's motions, or the lethal debris. What are you doing, Naruto? Sonic yelled. He didn't say anything. He climbed up a fallen tree trunk to get to a higher rock shelf, which brought him almost to the same level as Kurama's lower leg. The fox was only interested in the ship, and the explosive in its jaws got bigger. Kurama! Naruto yelled, his voice hoarse. The eye moved down. Mad. The leg moved, ready to shake off this annoying flea. Naruto did what he thought was best. He let go of the laser cannon that wasn't working. He straightened up straight and hit his own chest, just over his heart, with his fist. He then pointed right at Kurama, and his eyes were locked on the enormous, gory eye. "You're not alone!" he yelled, and the words came from the deepest part of his empty being. "I'm still here! And I need your help. Not your power. You." The word "you" hung in the air, full with energy. It wasn't Ninetails. It wasn't Monster. It was the name he had given him and the identity he had fought for in the depths of their combined psyche. Kurama's collecting bomb faltered. The red eye got bigger, but not because it was angry. This tiny, fragile, empty creature standing in the middle of a battlefield, not pleading for power but offering, what? It's so stupid and senseless. Being with someone? A reminder? Kurama hissed. "You are nothing without me." But the anger was gone, replaced by a confused look. "Maybe," Naruto yelled back, his face dirty and streaked with tears of anger. "But right now, you're everything. And you can't just blow it all up. Look around. This place is lively. It's not a jail. It's just not the same. And those robots want to utilize you, just like everyone else has. Don't allow them. Don't let him get away." He pointed a shaky finger at Eggman's ship. The cannon was at its highest level of power. The bomb from Kurama was ready. The clock stopped. In that endless second, Kurama glanced from the ship to the Hedgehog and Echidna who were in trouble, to the beautiful, crumbling world below him that was floating, and finally to the tiny, bright human below who gazed at him not with fear or greed, but with a request to work together. Kurama turned his head with a cry of great effort. He changed where he was aiming. He wasn't aiming for the mothership anymore. He sent the tailed beast bomb across the sky of the island, not straight up but on a slight arc. It screamed over Sonic and Knuckles' heads, over the tornado, and hit the second energy generator aboard Eggman's biggest support ship, which was powering the tractor beam network. At first, the explosion was quiet, but soon it got really loud. The support ship disappeared in a flame of purple and red, which shut down the whole tractor beam network. The beams that held Kurama's tails up disappeared right away. Eggman's victorious shout turned into a splutter of static and anger. "My ship! You rude animal!" Kurama sagged for a moment after being freed, the continual drain gone. He was tired because he had just fought and lost a lot of energy. Sonic took advantage of the chance. "Now, Tails! The signature of the generator is rising! It's too much!" That's what Tails said. "A direct hit on the cooling vents on the right side should cause a chain reaction that will shut everything down." "On it!" Sonic turned into a blue laser and shot up the slope of the island, running on air currents and falling debris, right at the exposed bottom of the mothership. Knuckles turned his anger on the surviving ground soldiers when he saw that the immediate threat to the island had been averted. "Get off my island!" he yelled. "One Echidna avalanche!" Naruto stood on the rock shelf, shaking. He turned his head up to stare at Kurama. The fox was breathing heavily and staring down at him. The red eyes were still fierce, but the mindless wrath had died down, and in its stead was a stormy, cautious perplexity. "Why?" The one word was quieter, like a rumble that Naruto felt in his bones instead of hearing it. "Why didn't you run? Why did you come here with nothing?" Naruto drew a hesitant breath. The sound of the fight that was still going on appeared to fade into the background. He responded, "Because a promise is a promise." And his voice got stronger. "And I told myself that I would never let you be exploited as a tool again. Even if you don't like me. Even if you don't know me right now." Kurama looked. The idea was so strange and opposite to all he had known for 1,000 years that it short-circuited his rage. This boy, this container, was much the same. The power was gone, but the will, the defiant, blazing, and unbreakable will, was still there. The egg carrier shook from a series of explosions within. Its main cannon power went out with a sad fizz. There was a lot of smoke coming out of its vents. A view screen showed Eggman's angry visage. "Just a small setback. This information is worth a lot. You dirty fox, I'll be back for that energy source. And I'll take your obnoxious little friend with me. Get back!" The other ships hid and shot up into the sky, leaving behind the wreckage of bots and emitters. A strange, ringing silence fell over the land. The only sounds were the crackle of fires, the drip of water, and the island's constant, low groan. Sonic landed softly next to Naruto and looked up at Kurama with a new, respectful look. "Not too bad, big guy. Not bad at all." Knuckles moved closer, keeping his eyes on the fox and then on Naruto. "The threat right now is gone. But the island is still going down. His energy, it's bad for the balance here." Kurama's lip curled, and a growl started in his chest. "Wait," Naruto said as he stepped forward and put himself between the echidna and the fox. It was a silly gesture, like a gnat protecting a lion. But it made them all stop. We don't belong here. We need to find the green emerald that brought us here. It brought us here. Maybe it can send us back. Tails flew the tornado in for a rough landing close by and jumped out. If we can find a dimensional chaos emerald and it's stable, I might be able to figure out its frequency and try to reverse the effect. He looked at Kurama with worry. But it could be anywhere. And we don't have a lot of time. Naruto looked back at Kurama. The fox was a shadow against the setting sun, which was making the sky darker and redder. He looked great, awful, and completely lost. Naruto said to Kurama, his new friends and himself, "We'll find it. Together." Kurama bent down so that his huge head was only a few feet from Naruto's. The boy felt his hot breath, which was full of chakra. He looked into Naruto's determined blue eyes, looking for the lie, the trick, and the fear. He only found that familiar, stubborn light. Kurama straightened up with a sound that was half snort and half grunt. "Don't think you can tell me what to do, brat," he said in a deep voice. But the threat was empty and routine. He looked at the big, strange, broken world around them. "But this place is annoying. Look for the stone. So we can go." It wasn't thanks. There was no agreement. For now, it was a truce. And for Naruto, who was small and empty in the shadow of the beast, experiencing the first ghostly twinge of something other than quiet in his gut, it was the first step back. The island moaned and dropped a couple more feet with a heart-stopping heave. The race to go home had started on a world that was actually coming apart beneath their feet. The end of Chapter 2. This answer was made by AI and is purely for your information. Next. Chapter 3, The Importance of a Name. Word count, about 3,200. After Eggman left, the silence was delicate and ringing. The island's low, constant groan pierced the silence. It was a deep, bass note of structural pain. Naruto felt the vibration through the soles of his feet as he stood in Kurama's shadow. It was a continual reminder that their break was only a few minutes long, not hours. Sonic was the first to move. A blue blur checked the area around the broken altar. "Coast is clear for now, but Egghead is probably licking his wounds and coming up with a plan B." He stopped in front of Naruto, hands on his hips. "So, a ninja who jumps between dimensions, huh? That's a first." Knuckles came closer, but he wasn't looking at Naruto. He was looking at Kurama, who was getting bigger. The big fox was crouched down, looking around nervously. Behind him, his 9 tails were a restless, twitching forest. His red eyes were slits that watched every motion. Knuckles said, "His energy is still messing with the chaos field." His voice was hoarse from being tired and worried. "The Master Emerald is dormant, its power suppressed by the dissonance." He spoke the last word like a curse and pointed at Kurama. "I can feel the island slipping away. We need to get things back in balance or leave." "Where should we go to evacuate?" Tails asked, joining them. He aimed a handheld scanner at Kurama, and it buzzed. The device screamed in outrage, and he hurriedly put it down. His energy signature is through the roof, and it doesn't work with the natural chaos energy here at all. It's like attempting to blend oil with supercharged, sentient oil that hates everything. "Stop your talking, Bugs!" Kurama snarled, and the sound made the rubble move. "You talk about me like I'm a problem that needs to be solved. I am the issue. The only way out is for me to leave. Find the stone." Naruto heard the undertone in his words, even though they were cocky. It wasn't just a request, it was an admission. Kurama knew that just being there was a disaster. The 9 tails didn't understand the idea. He was a force of nature, and the world changed to fit him. He was a poison here. Naruto turned to Tails and stated, "We will. You said you could find the emerald?" "Maybe," Tails remarked as he played with his scanner. "If it has a residual dimensional signature and Kurama's energy doesn't drown it out," he said, looking uncomfortably at the fox. "I'd have to take readings from the place where I arrived. Where did you two come from?" Naruto and Kurama were quiet for a while. Naruto gazed to the east, where he could just see the small, white sand atoll he had woken up on. Kurama's head turned almost without him noticing toward the smoking crater where the shrine had been. Naruto responded, "We came separately." And the emptiness in his stomach hurt again. "I was over there. He was here." Sonic whistled. "Split up when you get there. Rough." "Then we need to look at both sites," Tails said in the end. "Sonic, you're faster. Can you take Naruto to the atoll and see if you can find any strange energy? I'll stay here with Knuckles and try to look around this area. We'll meet back." He looked around at the steadily sinking earth. "Somewhere that will still be in the air in an hour." "Okay," Sonic responded, smiling at Naruto. "Are you ready for a quick ride, Ninja Boy? You might want to hold on tight." A loud tremor shook the island even more than before Naruto could speak. A whole part of the western border, weakened by the fight and Kurama's chaotic energies, broke off with a sound like a mountain dying. It fell into the foggy void, where it was quiet for a long second before a loud crash echoed back up. Kurama jumped. A small, barely noticeable jerk of his head. It wasn't terror, it was annoyance. And one more thing. Naruto looked. The big beast stared through the new hole in his island cage at the small, weak shapes around him. Kurama said the obvious. This place is falling apart. Your plan is moving too slowly. Do you have a better one? Sonic challenged, but he wasn't as cocky as usual. Kurama's eyes shone. He bent down again, close to Naruto. You want to find the stone. You can't travel like they do. It was an allegation. You are an anchor. It hurt to know the truth. Naruto gazed at his hands. He was the weakest part. The reason they had to go so slowly. Then, Kurama did something that was hard to believe. He moved, and even though he was so big, his body moved with a stunning, predatory grace. He lay all the way down, putting his torso and one of his forelegs on the ground. The gesture made a ramp of red fur and huge muscles that led up to the wide gap between his shoulder blades. Climb, he told them in a hushed voice. There was complete stillness after that. Sonic had his mouth slightly open. Tails let go of his scanner. Knuckles moved forward in a defensive way. Naruto just looked. The thought of riding the Ninetales was something that every power-hungry shinobi who had ever tried to control him dreamed of. It was the worst thing that could happen to any hamlet that was afraid of him. It was an intimacy that went beyond the mindscape, a physical sign of their link that had never been presented in all of history. Are you sure? Naruto asked in a quiet voice. Kurama snarled. Don't make me say it again, brat. But the words didn't have any heat in them. You are making us go slower. This is what efficiency means. Nothing more. But they both knew it wasn't true. Kurama did this. This was the first time he used his power not simply to destroy, but to help. To fix a situation that wasn't simply his. Naruto walked forward with his heart racing. He put a hand on Kurama's fur. It was warm and full of hidden power, and each thread was as thick as his finger. He started to climb, using the folds of skin and muscle to hang on to. It was like climbing a mountain that was alive and breathing. The smell was crazy, like ozone, hot stone, and something old and musky. After a minute of awkward scrambling, he made it to the wide, mostly level space between Kurama's shoulders. The view was amazing. He could see the whole floating archipelago, the horrible destruction, and the water that went on forever below. He felt like he was on top of the world and completely exposed, but for the first time since he got there, he didn't feel weak. He felt linked. Sonic was the first to get better, and a big, real smile spread across his face. Now that's what I'm talking about. Okay, team. Nux, Tails, you two check out this crater. We'll strike the atoll. Meet at the highest peak that is still standing in an hour. Go! Sonic took off in a flash. Tails gave Naruto a thumbs up and then went back to his gear. Knuckles just stared, his face showing great distrust, before storming off to look at the crater where the Master Emerald used to be. Kurama's only caution was, hold on. Then the world turned into a blur of wind and movement. Instead of running, Kurama flowed across the terrain. He moved at a scary, ground-eating rate, jumping over gaps between floating islands with ease and grace. Naruto held on to the fur and buried his face in it to keep the wind from tearing it apart. It wasn't at all like flying in the tornado. This was travel in its most basic form. He could feel every strong muscle bunch and release under him, which showed how much force was there and made the island's earthquakes appear small. They got at the White Sand Atoll in a lot less time than it took Tails' plane. Kurama stopped so quickly that Naruto almost fell over his head. The fox stood at the edge of the shore, peering at the place where Naruto had woken up. Its nose twitched as it took in big sniffs of air. Kurama said, "The residue is here." More to himself than to Naruto. Faint. It smells like ripped space and green lightning. Naruto fell down, his legs shaking. He walked to the spot in the sand where his body had made an indentation. He said in a low voice, "It felt like being ripped in two." Kurama didn't say anything for a long time. He said, "For me too." Although he didn't want to. It wasn't the seal that broke. It was something else. Something that didn't know what it was tearing apart. It was the closest they'd ever come to talking about the trauma. Naruto looked up at the fox, who was looking out at the horizon with his profile against the setting sun. He looked less like a demon and more like a big, tired animal in a cage that he couldn't see. Naruto said again, "We'll fix it," which was his constant promise. HN. They waited in silence that wasn't completely hostile anymore. Naruto looked around the beach and only found shells and weird, glowing seaweed. The emerald was no longer there. A few minutes later, Sonic zipped onto the scene. No luck with my perimeter sweep. Nothing glowing green and screwy. He gazed at Kurama with interest. So, huge man. What's going on with you and the kid? He termed you a tailed beast. Is that a type of animal or a job title? Kurama's tail swished angrily. He answered, It's a curse. We are beings of concentrated chakra, made by the sage of 6 paths. We are strong, and power should be used or put aside. Used? Sonic's smile went away. By who? Kurama said the word by humans, with anger. Like him. They put us within their bodies and turn us into weapons. Jinchuriki. Cursed human sacrifices who take our anger so their towns might use our power. Naruto jumped. The old words sounded even worse when pronounced here in this strange area. Sonic's eyes darted to Naruto, who had a pained look on his face. So, Naruto is one of these Jinshu whatevers? He has you locked up inside him at home? Kurama said. He was. But his eyes were still far away. Now I'm here. And he is empty. He didn't sound triumphant when he said, empty. It was true. And it had a strange, new weight to it. Doesn't look empty to me, Sonic remarked, folding his arms. He ran into a war zone without the powers to help you. Doesn't sound like a person who is just a container. Kurama glanced down at Sonic, and behind those old eyes, something genuinely strange was going on. The hedgehog wasn't scared, it was just bluntly curious. Kurama said, He is a fool. But again, there was no venom. A persistent, annoying fool. Sonic smirked and said, Takes one to know one. Tails' voice crackled across Sonic's wrist calm before Kurama could say anything. Sonic! We found something, Knuckles and I. Not the emerald, but a path. The dimensional break created a gash in the chaos energy here. It's not very clear, but it goes away from the altar and toward the eastern cloud sea. A path. Naruto's heart raced. Where does it go? I don't know, Tails said. But it's the only clue we have. The readings are clearer up high, away from the, ground level interference. He was talking about Kurama. You need to get to a high place so I can show you the way. On our way, Sonic said. See you at the top. The summit was the highest point of the tallest stone spire that was still standing. It was a needle of granite that stuck out from the middle island. He couldn't get Kurama up there, so he waited on a wide ledge below, a red sentinel with a dark mood. The view from the top was both stunning and terrifying. The floating islands made a spiraling, broken chain that slowly sank into a sea of clouds that glowed pink and orange as the sun set. Tails had his scanner connected to a bigger device from the tornado. Do you see this energy signature? Tails pointed to a thread of green static on the screen that was moving and virtually invisible. It's the stuff left over from the rift. It doesn't go in a straight line. It moves. Like the emerald was moving after it got there. Moving? Knuckles growled. Chaos emeralds are drawn to places where there is power or imbalance. It could be bouncing if it's not stable. Or something found it, Sonic remarked with a frown. With a finger, Tails followed the line. It goes out there, into the cloud sea. But the signal gets weaker. We would have to leave Angel Island to follow it. Knuckles replied in a somber voice. The island is dying. I have to protect the Master Emerald, yet its power is held back. I can't hold it up by myself, not with his power. He pointed to the ledge where Kurama was waiting. We have to go. We have to find the emerald if it's out there. A strategy took shape, weak and desperate. They would use the tornado to follow the track, and Knuckles would stay behind as long as he could to keep the island stable. But the tornado could only hold 2 people. A voice from below said, I will follow. Kurama had raised his head and turned his ears to listen to what they were saying. I don't need your metal bird. Tails softly said. You can't fly. Kurama responded. I don't need to fly. And a little bit of his old arrogance came back. I will run. On what? Where are you going? Sonic said, pointing to the void between the islands. It's all open sky out there. Kurama's lips drew back, and it seemed like he was smirking. You don't believe me, rat? Watch. He turned around and jumped off the ledge. Naruto's breath stopped. But Kurama did not collapse. When his huge paws impacted the empty air, a solid, red chakra platform appeared beneath them with a crack hiss. With each stride he took, he made a blazing step in the sky that lasted for a short time. He started to run, and a trail of red platforms that were fading away appeared and disappeared behind him. It was a bridge of pure will and might over the emptiness. He ran on the air itself, like a 9-tailed comet burning a trail across the cloud sea. Sonic let out a low whistle of thanks. Okay. You won. That's really cool. Naruto felt something strong and proud rise up in him. This was Kurama's power, which he could use to move and destroy. For freedom. Then it's settled, Tails remarked, as he hurried to pack his things. Come on, Sonic, get in the tornado with me. You should ride with Kurama, Naruto. If we get into problems, you're the only one he might listen to. Naruto nodded. He climbed down from the spire. Kurama had come back when he reached the main ledge, and he landed with a quiet thud. He knelt down again without saying a word. This time, it didn't feel as odd to climb up. He got comfortable between Kurama's shoulders, where his hands could grip the thick fur. Knuckles stood alone at the top, his fists clenched at his sides. He commanded, "Find the emerald." And his voice carried on the wind. "And take your mess with you. Bring my home back." Naruto pledged. "We will." And he meant it for both the stoic Echidna and himself. Tails flew the tornado into the air, and Sonic rode on the wing. Kurama saw them leave and then stared at the green trail that was vanishing on the horizon. Only Tails' devices and his own heightened senses could see it. "Hold on tight, kid," he said in a deep voice. "This will not be an easy road." Then he jumped off the ledge and into the broad sky. Naruto held on as everything around them fell away. It was both thrilling and scary to feel like I was running on nothing and that Kurama's huge power was coming together with every step. The wind shrieked by, and it was colder now that they had left the island's microclimate. Angel Island got smaller behind them, looking like a dark, sinking shape against the sunset. Naruto peered ahead at the little speck of the tornado that was leading the way and then below at the cloud sea that was always moving. There was a hint of green somewhere out there, and that was their only path home. And for the first time, riding the beast that was his oldest enemy and weirdest ally, he didn't feel like a prisoner of fate. He felt like they were chasing it. The name Kurama no longer felt like just a moniker he'd given to a demon. It felt like the name of the only other entity in all of creation who understood what it meant to be torn in two and set adrift. And in that understanding, in the cadence of the enormous fox's steps against the empty sky, Naruto began to feel the slightest, first trickle of something warm returning to the cold hollow in his chest. Not chakra. Not yet. But hope. End of Chapter 3. Next. Chapter 4, On Clouds of Crimson and Steel. Word count 3250. The world became a symphony of wind and ephemeral, crimson light. Running on air was not like running on land. There was no traction, no purchase, simply the ongoing, tremendous expenditure of will and chakra. With every booming step, Kurama constructed a platform of solidified energy that burst into being under his paw and disintegrated into scarlet mist behind him, creating an ephemeral bridge over the empty heavens. Naruto clutched to the thick fur, his body pressed firmly against the fox's neck. The wind was a tangible force, trying to tear him apart and toss him into the abyss of pink and gold clouds below. He squeezed his eyes shut against the sting, then pushed them open. He couldn't afford to miss this. The tornado, a robust red and yellow speck, flew a steady route ahead, Tails navigating by his sensors. Beyond it, the sun was a molten coin sinking into a sea of vapor, painting everything in shades of fire and blood. The raw, scary beauty of it was eclipsed only by the feeling of power beneath him. He could feel the strain in Kurama's muscles, the minute tremors that went through the big body with each chakra-formed step. This wasn't effortless. It was a huge act of persistent creativity. Kurama was literally constructing a way where none existed, and it was hurting him. The trail weakens. Kurama's voice was a murmur Naruto felt in his bones, barely heard over the gale. The rodent's machine is slow. They're going as fast as they can, Naruto shouted back, though he knew speed wasn't the tornado's strength. Endurance was. And Kurama, with all his power, was burning energy at a tremendous rate. As if to punctuate the thought, the fox's next step hesitated. The chakra platform formed a fraction of a second late, and his paw sunk slightly before solidifying. Naruto lurched, his grip tightening until his knuckles were white. TCH. Kurama restored his rhythm, but the lapse was telling. Are you okay? Naruto asked, the question feeling absurd directed at a being of Kurama's magnitude. Do not concern yourself with me, brat, came the instinctive rejoinder, although it lacked its customary sharpness. The fox's breathing was deeper, a low bellow sound resisting the wind. Concern yourself with the emptiness inside you. It is distracting. The comment was like a punch. The hollow aching was a constant companion, but hearing Kurama recognize it made it more real, more shared. Their split was a wound on both sides. I'm working on it, Naruto retorted, the old defensiveness flaring. By clinging to my fur? A terrible strategy. Before Naruto could strike back, Tails' voice crackled through a small, speaker-like gadget Sonic had slapped into Naruto's headband before they departed. Naruto! The trail is taking a dramatic bend north-northwest. The energy signature is getting jagged. Like it's being agitated. And I'm picking up secondary readings on the long-range sensors. Metallic. High energy. Sonic's voice cut in. Eggman? Pattern matches his low-orbit satellite factory signatures. Tails affirmed, worry obvious in his tone. The Death Egg assembly line. He must have retreated to a nearby facility. And the Emerald's headed right for it, Sonic said grimly. Course change. We're going in hot. The tornado banked hard. Kurama sawed to follow, his enormous body leaning. Naruto slid sideways, a shriek wrenched from his mouth before he sank his fingers in deeper. The quick turn cost Kurama more energy. The chakra platforms flashed brighter, hotter, as if compensating. They flew into the increasing dusk, leaving the sunset behind. The cloud sea below grew darker, more tumultuous. Ahead, the first stars prickled in a violet sky, and against them, a new silhouette appeared. It wasn't a natural formation. It was a complex of obsidian black metal and flashing green conduits, a series of interconnecting rings and spires orbiting a central, cylindrical factory that belched smoke and plasma into the high atmosphere. Lights like malicious eyeballs littered its surface. The Eggman Empire insignia was emblazoned on the side of the largest ring in garish, lighted yellow. The Orbital Arsenal Arc, Tails recognized over the communications. A mobile factory and resource processor. Eggman must have called it in after the fight on Angel Island. A hive, Kurama muttered, his speed not slowing. Full of more metal insects. The Emerald's trail leads directly into the central factory spire, Tails reported. The interference is huge in there, I'm losing the signal. Then we go in and get it back, Sonic declared. Tails, you're on Overwatch and disrupt their comms. Naruto, Big Red, you're with me. We blast in, take the shiny, and blast out before Eggman finishes his mustache-twirling villain speech. It was a classic Sonic plot. Simple, direct, and based on incredible speed. But Naruto gazed at the enormous, armed fortification. He thought of the pit in his gut, of Kurama's apparent exhaustion. This wasn't a hidden leaf infiltration assignment. This was a direct attack on a technological fortress, and they had no intel, no backup, and a power source that was deliberately poisoning their only means of escape. Kurama, Naruto said, leaning forward. You can't keep this up. Running on air, then a fight. You think I cannot? The fox snarled, but it was reflexive. I think Eggman will try to capture you again. Naruto pressed, the memory of the siphoning beams fresh. He wants your energy. That factory is probably built to handle that. We need a different plan. Kurama was silent for 3 hammering heartbeats, 3 more crimson platforms flaring and dying. Speak. Naruto's mind raced, drawing on lessons from Shikamaru, from Kakashi. Misdirection. Sonic's the fastest. He's the distraction. He goes in loud, makes them chase him. You can't get inside that metal maze. You're too large. But you can generate a larger distraction outside. Draw their firearms, their massive armaments. While they're looking at you too, I go in quiet and find the emerald. The arrogance of it sat in the air. The powerless kid, volunteering for the stealth operation. Sonic's laugh sounded over the calm. I like it. Cause chaos on 2 fronts. Lets them know the Hedgehog and the Hellfox are in town. You. Alone. In that metal gut, Kurama said, his voice low. With no chakra. You will be squashed. I'm a ninja, Naruto said, and for the first time since arriving, he uttered it with a fraction of his former confidence. I'm good at being sneaky when I have to be. And I can sense it. The emerald. It's the same energy that pulled us apart. I think I can track it, like a pain in my teeth. It was true. As they grew closer, a faint, sickly green throb had begun to pulse at the edge of his awareness, a phantom echo of the tear in his soul. Kurama let out a long, hot breath that was torn away by the wind. Foolish. Reckless. Like always. He looked ahead at the approaching fortress, its defensive cannons beginning to swivel, tracking them. Very well. We will do it your way. But if you die in there, I will discover your spirit in the pristine region and berate you for eternity. It was the closest thing to be careful Naruto would ever get from him. Tails, Sonic remarked. Give our ninja a landing zone. Somewhere quiet. On it. Scans suggest a maintenance hatch on the lower south ring, near the thermal vents. Sensor coverage is patchy there. I'll jam what I can. Naruto, I'm sending the locations to your headband display, now. A tiny, brilliant green dot emerged on the lens of the device on Naruto's forehead, overlaid over his vision, designating a place on the huge stronghold. Got it. All right, team. Playtime. Sonic whooped. See you on the dance floor, Foxy. He launched himself from the tornado's wing, becoming a blue streak that shot ahead, deliberately painting a bright target on himself as he homed in on the main gun batteries. As predicted, the arsenal arc came alive. Alarm lights strobed. Hatches opened, disgorging swarms of egg pawns on jetpacks. The larger cannons tracked Sonic, filling the space between with laser fire. "My turn," Kurama rumbled, and the sound was full of dark promise. He stopped his aerial run, planting all four paws on a final, massive platform of chakra that solidified into a semi-permanent disk. He stood upon it, a floating island of crimson malice. Then he threw back his head and roared. It was not a roar of pain or confusion, but a challenge. A declaration of war. He didn't wait for a response. Opening his maw, he gathered not a single-tailed beast spawn, but a dozen smaller, basketball-sized orbs of condensed chakra. With a flick of his head, he spat them forth like scarlet meteors. They streaked towards the fortress, impacting shields, gun emplacements, and landing pads in a series of concussive, fiery explosions that lit up the night. The Ark's defense systems immediately split their focus. Half continued to futilely chase Sonic, the other half swiveled to target the new, massive, stationary threat. Beams of plasma and torrents of missiles lanced out towards Kurama's platform. Naruto watched, his heart in his throat, as Kurama didn't dodge. He raised a single tail, and it expanded, wrapping around his body in a spiraling shield of glowing red chakra. The incoming fire detonated against it in spectacular, silent flashes, the shield holding firm but shuddering under the onslaught. Kurama was making himself the biggest, toughest target in the sky. "Now, Naruto! Go!" Tails urged over the comms. This was it. Naruto took a deep breath. He looked down at the dizzying drop to the metal hull of the fortress, then at the green dot on his display. He had one shot. "I need to get closer! To the vents!" Kurama, despite the barrage he was weathering, heard. With a grunt of effort, he willed the chakra platform he stood on to move. It wasn't fast, but it slid forward like a flying carpet made of blood and fire, descending towards the lower south ring of the Arkansas. The defensive fire intensified, trying to break his shield before he got too close. 50 yards. 30. The heat from the factory's thermal vents washed up, an industrial stink of ozone and oil. The landing zone was a grimy metal grate next to a roaring vent outlet. "Now!" Naruto yelled. Kurama's tail shield parted for a split second. In that instant, Naruto pushed off with all his strength, leaping into the open, screaming air. For a terrifying second, he was in free fall, the fortress hull rushing up to meet him. He twisted his body, aiming for the grate. He hit hard, his knees buckling, his hands slapping against the hot metal to stop his tumble. He scrambled behind the cover of the vent housing, his body aching from the impact. He looked back. Kurama's shield had closed, taking several direct hits that rocked the entire platform. The fox gave no sign he'd even noticed Naruto's departure. His attention was fully on the battle, on being the perfect distraction. He was alone. Inside Eggman's fortress. The din of external battle was muffled here, replaced by the deep, metallic heartbeat of machinery, the hiss of steam, and the distant, echoing clanks of robotic patrols. The green throb in his senses was stronger now, a pulling sensation from deep within the central spire. He touched the headband device. "I'm in." "Signal's weak, but I have you," Tails replied, static lacing his voice. "Sonic's leading the main forces on a wild goose chase through the fuel processing sector. Kurama has, about 70% of the Ark's heavy artillery focused on him. Internal security should be lighter. The Emerald signature is strongest if you head coreward. And Naruto, be careful. I'm reading some strange energy spikes in there with you. Not robotic. Organic, but wrong." A chill that had nothing to do with the cold metal crept down Naruto's spine. "Understood." He moved, keeping low. His orange jumpsuit was a liability, but in the dim, emergency-lit corridors of grease-stained metal and hissing pipes, he could use shadows. He remembered his academy training: move like a ghost, use ambient noise. He was no Niji, but he was better than nothing. He avoided the main corridors, slipping through maintenance ducts and climbing service ladders, following the sickly green pull. The place was a labyrinth. Several times he froze as squads of egg pawns marched past, their optical sensors scanning. He held his breath, pressing into alcoves, feeling the hollow silence within scream at him to have chakra for a transformation or clone jutsu. After what felt like an hour, he reached a heavy, sealed door marked "High-Yield Energy Containment." The pull was strongest here, pounding behind his eyes. This was it. The door was locked, with a keypad and a biometric scanner. Naruto stared at it, despair creeping in. He couldn't hack it. He had no explosives. A vibration shook the floor, followed by a distant, echoing boom that was distinctly different from the external artillery. It was the sound of something heavy collapsing inside. Sonic's work, or maybe. A hiss of hydraulics made him jump. A service hatch to his left, small and circular, spun open. A bannock? He tensed, ready to run. But no robot emerged. Instead, a figure pulled itself out. It was tall, clad in dark, tattered clothing that seemed to absorb the low light. Its skin was ashen gray, and its eyes glowed with a sinister yellow light from within a shadowed face. It moved with an unnatural, jerky grace. The figure straightened, its head tilting as it regarded Naruto. A cold feeling of utter malevolence radiated from it, different from Kurama's hot rage. This was a calculated, hungry chill. A human child. The figure spoke, its voice a multi-layered rasp, like stone grinding against bone. Fragile. Full of fear. And touched by a great negative power. The scent of the beast is on you. It took a step forward. The black arms seek that power. The beast's hatred is delicious. You will lead us to it. Or you will be the first course. Naruto stumbled back, hitting the sealed door. He had nowhere to run. The hollow in his gut yawned, a void of powerlessness. He faced the sealed door holding his only way home, and a creature of nightmare that saw him only as a link to Kurama. Outside, the thunder of Kurama's battle and Sonic's chaos continued. But in this silent, sterile hallway, Naruto Uzumaki was truly on his own. End of Chapter 4. Next. Chapter 5, The Black Tide. Word count 3-280. The creature's presence was a physical chill, leaching the warmth from the air in the metal corridor. Its yellow eyes burned like twin toxic suns, pinning Naruto against the sealed vault door. He could smell it now, an odor like damp soil, spoiled meat, and ozone, a sharp contrast to the sterile industrial reek of the Ark. What are you? Naruto managed, his voice tight. His back was to the cold metal, his hands scrabbling for purchase he knew wasn't there. We are the Black Arms, the figure rasped, its head tilting to an unnatural angle. The inheritors of this and all worlds. I am one of the chosen. You may call me Doom's Eye. It took another gliding step forward, its feet making no sound on the grating. The Crimson Beast's energy calls to us. Its rage, its loneliness, a feast for the hive mind. You are connected to it. A tether. Naruto's mind raced. This wasn't Eggman. This was something else, something that felt ancient and deeply, organically evil. It wanted Kurama, but not for power. For consumption. The thought was more horrifying than any machine. I'm not leading you to anyone, Naruto said, forcing bravado into his voice. He dropped into a basic academy fighting stance, fists raised. It felt pathetic. Doom's Eye let out a sound like dry leaves rustling, a laugh. You have no light within you. You are an empty vessel. Yet you posture. It raised a long, gray hand. From its fingertips, dark, viscous tendrils of energy sprouted, writhing like living shadows. We will siphon your memories, child. The pain of separation will show us the path to the beast. The tendrils lashed out. Naruto dove to the side, rolling clumsily. The shadows struck the vault door where he'd been standing, not with force, but sinking into the metal with a sizzling, corroding sound. They left behind pitted, blackened scars. They don't just hit, they decay, he realized with a surge of terror. A single touch would be catastrophic. He came up running, not towards the creature, but back down the corridor the way he'd come. His only chance was to lose it in the maze. His footsteps echoed loudly, a giveaway. Doom's Eye gave chase, not with speed, but with an eerie, gliding pursuit. It was faster than it looked. The tendrils shot past Naruto's head, forcing him to duck into a side passage filled with throbbing, green-lit pipes. Tails! Sonic! There's something else in here! He gasped into the headband comm, dodging another shadowy lash that melted a chunk of pipe, releasing a jet of scalding steam. The response was a burst of static, then Tails' strained voice. Turference is Black Arms! Naruto, get out of there! Their biology disrupts, signals, chaos energy! Can't, it's chasing me! He heard Sonic's voice, distant and distorted. Keeping me busy with an entire, of robot piranhas! Hang tight! Hanging tight wasn't an option. Naruto skidded around a corner and found himself in a dead end, a small monitoring station with banks of flickering screens showing various sectors of the Arkansas. One screen showed the external view, Kurama, still on his chakra platform, now surrounded by a hovering swarm of larger, artillery-class badniks. His shield was holding, but it flickered with each sustained barrage. He was a bastion under siege, and he was tiring. Another screen showed Sonic, a blue comet leaving a trail of sparking wreckage through a hangar bay, pursued by a small army. They were both fully engaged. There was no cavalry coming. Doom's Eye rounded the corner, blocking the only exit. There is no escape. Only assimilation. Naruto backed against the console, his eyes darting for anything, a tool, a weapon. He saw a heavy, metal wrench on a nearby shelf. It was something. As Doom's eye advanced, tendrils spreading to fill the narrow space, Naruto's gaze snapped back to the screen showing Kurama. He saw the fox take a direct hit from a plasma cannon. The shield flared, dimmed, and Kurama's head jerked back with a snarl of pain. A real, physical flinch. In that moment, something in Naruto broke. Not into fear, but into a white-hot clarity. This creature, the Black Arms, wanted to eat Kurama's pain. They were predators of suffering. And they saw Naruto as nothing, an empty thing. I'm not empty. The thought wasn't about chakra. It was about everything that had defined him long before he ever tapped into the Ninetales' power. The will to never give up. The promise to bring back a friend. The sheer, stubborn noise of his existence. Doom's eye lunged, tendrils spearing for his chest. Naruto didn't try to dodge towards the exit. He ducked under the lashing shadows, feeling the deathly cold brush his back, and grabbed the wrench. Instead of swinging at the creature, a useless gesture, he spun and brought the heavy tool down on the console in front of the external view screen. The screen shattered in a shower of glass and sparks. But more importantly, he slammed the wrench into the bank of controls beneath it, mashing buttons, throwing levers. Alarms whooped inside the room and presumably elsewhere. On a different, intact screen, he saw a change in the external view. One of the large, rotating weapon platforms on the ark's upper ring, previously focused on Kurama, suddenly jerked and went limp, its lights dying. He just caused a localized systems failure. A tiny one. But it was a distraction. Doom's eye hissed, its attention momentarily split between Naruto and the malfunction its prey had caused. Insignificant. Maybe, Naruto panted, hefting the wrench. But I'm not just a tether. I'm the guy who annoys you to death. He charged, not at the creature's body, but at the wall of shadowy tendrils. He swung the wrench in a wild arc, not expecting to hit the creature, but to intercept the tendrils. Metal met darkness. The effect was immediate and violent. The wrench didn't block the tendrils. They wrapped around it. But on contact with the solid, non-energetic metal, the corrosive shadow seemed to recoil, sizzling and dissipating. The wrench itself turned black and pitted, its surface crumbling, but it had interrupted the attack. Doom's eye jerked back, a flicker of what might have been surprise in its yellow eyes. Its power was potent against energy, against life force, against chakra. Against a simple, dense piece of industrial metal swung with desperate force, it was less effective. Naruto didn't wait. He pressed the advantage, such as it was. He swung again, keeping the tendrils at bay, driving the creature back a step into the corridor. He was fighting not to win, but to survive, to buy seconds. Your defiance is meaningless! Doom's eye snarled, gathering more shadows, thicker and denser. But Naruto's mind was working. The creature talked about the hive mind. It fed on negative energy. Kurama's rage. And it saw Naruto as empty. What if I'm not what they think? He remembered the feeling on the island, when Kurama had listened. The connection wasn't chakra deep anymore. It was something else. A bond forged in a shared mind, a shared loneliness. As he parried another lash of tendrils, the wrench now half its original size and burning cold in his hand, he did something reckless. He stopped thinking about defense. He thought about Kurama. Not as a weapon, not as a beast, but as the stubborn, arrogant, infuriating companion who had, against all odds, knelt for him to climb on. He focused on the feeling of that run across the sky, the shared purpose, the unspoken truce. He poured every ounce of that feeling, not hatred, not rage, but fierce, protective, stubborn camaraderie, into his stance, his gaze. You want to find him? Naruto said, his voice dropping, losing its panic, gaining a low intensity. You want to taste his pain? His loneliness? You can't have it. Because it's ours. And we don't share with bottom feeders like you. He wasn't emitting chakra. There was nothing to emit. But he was emitting something. A signal of pure, defiant connection. It was the opposite of the negative energy the Black Arms craved. Doom's eye flinched. Not from a physical blow, but as if struck by a dissonant, painful noise. The swirling shadows around it faltered. What is this? Not light, not dark. A noise. A discord. It was confused. Naruto's bond with Kurama, stripped of its chakra component, was an anomaly its hive mind understanding couldn't parse. It was a relationship, pure and simple, and it was alien to a species that only understood consumption and hierarchy. In that moment of confusion, the ceiling above Doom's eye exploded. Not with fire, but with a controlled burst of blue energy. A familiar figure in red and white shoes dropped through the hole, landing in a crouch between Naruto and the Black Arms agent. Looks like the party's in here too, Sonic the Hedgehog said, cracking his knuckles. His fur was smudged with soot, but his grin was electric. And you didn't invite me? Rude. Doom's eye recovered quickly, its tendrils reforming. Another creature of chaos. You will be consumed as well. Yeah, heard it all before from the last world-ending goon, Sonic said, his body blurring as he effortlessly dodged a spread of shadowy spears. He became a blue vortex, a spin dash that tore through the tendrils, not by corroding them, but by shredding them with pure, kinetic force. Thing is, I'm a really fast eater. And I'm not on the menu. With Sonic occupying the creature, Naruto saw his chance. The sealed vault door was now unguarded. But the keypad was still a problem. His eyes fell on the shattered console. Among the wreckage was a sparking, exposed wire bundle, and next to it, a fried identification card from a technician, half melted but its magnetic stripe might still be intact. It was a long shot. He grabbed the card and sprinted to the vault door, swiping it through the reader. Nothing. He tried again, jiggling it. A red light blinked. Come on! Behind him, Sonic and Doom's eye were a storm of motion and shadow. Sonic was faster, but the creature's tendrils reformed endlessly, and its corrosive touch meant he couldn't afford a single mistake. Naruto, whatever you're doing, do it faster! This guy's a real drip! Sonic called, zipping up a wall to avoid a pooling shadow on the floor. Naruto took a breath, forcing his hands to stop shaking. He looked at the keypad. It was a simple number pad. A code. He thought of Eggman's ego. His obsession. He typed 0-1-0-0, Eggman's self-proclaimed genius, code he'd overheard Tails mention once. Access denied? He tried 9-9-9-9. Access denied? He was out of ideas. He slammed his fist against the metal in frustration. The hollow ache in his gut throbbed in time with the green pull from behind the door. The emerald is right there. An idea, born of sheer desperation, struck him. He wasn't a sensor. But the ache, the pull, it was a direction. A connection. He placed his palm flat against the cold metal of the vault door, right over the spot where the green throb was strongest. He closed his eyes, ignoring the battle behind him. He didn't search for chakra. He searched for the memory of the tear. The feeling of the green light, the shattering of the seal, the wrenching apart. He focused on the pain of it, the wrongness. He let that feeling echo in his empty core, and then he pushed it out through his palm and into the door. He wasn't trying to open it with force. He was trying to sympathize. To make the door, the lock, the security system, feel the same dissonant, dimensional wrongness that had brought him here. For a second, nothing happened. Then, a low hum started in the door. The keypad lights flickered erratically. The red denied light stuttered, switched to yellow, then to a frantic, pulsating green. With a heavy clunk and a hiss of equalizing pressure, the massive vault door shuddered and began to slide open. He'd done it. Not by hacking or writing code, but by letting the system see the chaos it was made to stop. Whoa, nice one! Sonic cheered, distracting Doom's eye with a feint that left the creature open to a kick that sent it crashing into a wall. Naruto didn't wait. He slipped through the opening door into the chamber beyond. The room was a spherical containment cell, sterile and white. In the center, suspended in a complex cage of energy beams that crackled with that familiar, sickly green light, was the Chaos Emerald. But it was wrong. It wasn't its usual pristine, glowing gemstone form. It was jagged, its surface fractured like broken glass, pulsing irregularly. Tiny bolts of green lightning arced from it to the containment field, straining against it. This was the source. The unstable, dimensional key. And standing before it, a data pad in hand, was Dr. Eggman himself. He turned around, his mustache bristling with anger. You! The weak, powerless human child! How did you bypass my security? Naruto ignored him, his eyes locked on the emerald. The pull was magnetic, painful. He took a step forward. Stay back! Eggman screeched, pressing a button on his pad. Two large, armored badniks unfolded from recesses in the wall, their cannons powering up. That emerald is a scientific marvel. Its dimensional instability, combined with the data I gathered on the Fox's energy signature, will allow me to open portals to infinite energy sources. It's mine! The sounds of Sonic's fight outside the vault door got louder and louder until they stopped with a final crash and a fading hiss. Sonic zipped into the vault chamber a second later and came to a stop next to Naruto. One shadow monster, with extra crunch. Hey, Eggman! I'm borrowing your emerald! Eggman's face purpled. You will not! Destroy them! The badniks fired. Sonic grabbed Naruto and pulled him out of the way. The energy blasts burned the wall where they had been. Naruto's eyes were always on the emerald. Sonic, we need to grab it and go! Kurama can't hold out forever! On it! Sonic became a blue streak, circling the room, dodging fire, looking for an opening to snatch the emerald from its cage. But as he got close, a wild arc of green lightning from the unstable gem lashed out, not at him, but at Naruto. It didn't strike him physically. It seemed to grab onto the empty space inside him, the space where Kurama used to be. Naruto gasped and bent over. A vision, sharp and terrible, flooded his mind. He saw not through his own eyes, but through Kurama's. He felt the exhaustion, the burning strain of maintaining the chakra platform under relentless fire. He saw, through the fox's eyes, a new threat: sleek, black, organic-looking ships, different from Eggman's, emerging from the cloud cover below. Black Arms vessels. They were converging on Kurama's position. They weren't firing weapons. They were emitting a pulsing, yellow wave of energy, a psychic siren call, designed to agitate, to enrage, to draw out the negative energy they fed on. And Kurama, tired, isolated, and bathed in that aggravating signal, was responding. His rage, his hatred, was being pulled to the surface, amplified. He was losing focus. The chakra platform under him flickered in a way that was dangerous. Sonic pulled him behind cover, and the vision ended. Naruto! Snap out of it! Naruto's breath came in ragged gasps. Kurama! They're targeting Kurama! The Black Arms! They're here! Eggman, overhearing, paused. The Black Arms? Nuisance! They want to steal my sample! He seemed almost offended. No matter! Once I have this emerald's power, I will deal with all of you! The situation was collapsing. Eggman's bots were guarding the emerald. The Black Arms fleet was moving in on a vulnerable, agitated Kurama. And the unstable key to everything was right in front of them, radiating pain. Naruto looked from the pulsing emerald to Sonic's determined face, to Eggman's furious one. They couldn't fight a war on 3 fronts. They needed to simplify. He met Sonic's eyes. Get the emerald. I don't care how. I need to get to Kurama. Sonic understood. He nodded, a serious glint in his green eyes. Go. I'll handle Egghead and catch up. Tails! Naruto needs an exit, and fast! Already on it. Tails' voice was clear now, the Black Arms interference gone from this room. I'm bringing the tornado to the exterior near the vault sector. There's an emergency hatch on the north wall of that chamber. See it? It leads to a maintenance ledge. Go! Naruto saw the hatch. He gave Sonic one last nod, then turned and ran for it, leaving the battle for the emerald behind. His mission had changed. He wasn't here to retrieve the way home anymore. He was here to stop his friend from being eaten alive.